I'm Sora Luxon, and this is Hermetic Principle number 1, the principle of mentalism. The all is mind. The universe is mental. So go ahead and read or listen to this principle word for word as defined and explained in the Kybalion. Whether it's on YouTube, there's a bunch of people who read the principle of mentalism on YouTube straight from the Kybalion for you to listen to, or go read the book, right? Because no one's going to do a better job of explaining this law than its origin form. This podcast video will likely be fairly short because this really is a law that you do need to just read and sit with and start working things out for yourself. Let it roll around in your head for a while. It's really going to be that sort of a principle. The best way you're going to start gaining some access to it is to sit down with it yourself and try to figure out what it means. So now that you've paused this video and done that, right? You've read how everything is subordinate to the mind as defined in the Kybalion's explanation of the principle of mentalism. Well, if everything's subordinate to the mind, then yes, right? This is about manifestation. But manifestation simply is how existence works. Everyone does it. You're doing it right now. That's how this whole place we're in works, right? This field of existent reality. But how can you use it to your advantage instead of that vain knocking that's referred to, right? Well, everything begins with and is understood via thought. That's the principle of mentalism. So the field of the mind is of infinite potential. That's a good thing to start thinking about. The visions, ideas of our mind, those things that you're imagining, those thoughts that are coming to you, right? Those visions or ideas, they follow by a process, step by step, into the physical and are materialized. Now, that's kind of hard to comprehend. This is the advanced form of mastery that the occult provides a path for to the dedicated practitioner. This mentalism, quote unquote mentalism, not the law itself, but this type of mentalism process, it can be learned and controlled, allowing the person who understands the application of the great law of mentalism to control their reality. For the non-adept who might not yet have the tools or training in place to work with this magical law in more specific or detailed, more volatile ways maybe, right, for a non-adept. For them, it's enough to begin really accepting, right, if you don't have a trained master watching over you as you're going through this, then it's going to be enough to really accept that by having the right thoughts, you can bring forth the right action, right? We can bring forth right action by right thought. That's one way of pursuing this law. And that's a huge part of mentalism in itself. And more than enough to get anyone headed in the right direction with this principle. If you can just manage that, you're going to be way ahead of the game. And it's one of the safest things that someone who's worked with the law perhaps a little bit more deeply can say and suggest to others. That is, it's safe for everyone to start working with in that specific way before they're ready from that preparatory stage to then get into other applications of the law of mentalism. So that's all I'm going to say about those things to the public at large, right? Can't have a neophyte turning the right staff into the wrong snake. I should probably mention too that the principle of mentalism, the first law, this one, of the 7 Hermetic principles, is immutable. The first 3 laws are immutable. That is, I'm trying to think of how to explain immutable. Some of the other laws, if you're beginning with this video and then moving forward to the following principles in order, you won't have come across this yet, my defining or explaining this. But some of the other laws are mutable. That is, they can be partially changeable or not changeable so much as partly overcome or risen above sometimes. it's a bit of a difficult thing to explain without getting into a whole other conversation, but some of the other laws, 4 of them, can be worked with a bit. You can sort of bend them with the correct methods and training. You can play with them a little bit, right? They have some give to them, if you can think of it that way. But this law, the law of mentalism, it's immutable, fixed. No bend, no change, right? It's more solid than rock. It cannot be changed or bent. It cannot be overcome. Even for a short duration, it's not going to happen. The all is mind. That's immutable. That's law. And that's just how it is. And you're not going to get around that no matter what you do. I felt like that should be mentioned, right? So it doesn't matter if you believe it, deny it, think you found a way around it. You haven't. It just is. The law of mentalism is. The principle of mentalism is partially agreed to, or is starting to be agreed to by science, especially in the realm of quantum mechanics lately, right? That things have their existence or quote unquote truth, right? There's a word to avoid in these sorts of explanations, but that things have their truth in the perception of the mind, that their validity is gained an object by the subject, right? That by, say, looking at something, that you're bringing it into existence or bringing it into reality. But this law isn't just about how science is trying to explain, right, the individual's perceptions and beliefs interpreting reality. This law is actually also about creating that reality and where our reality stems from and how, as mental creation is the only form of genesis possible without ever having to take matter of some kind from somewhere else. See, these are huge concepts caught up in the principle of mentalism, which is why I said go ahead and read the actual Kybalion for this law, because that is where you're going to start working with and having these explanations in your mind, because there is a lot to cover. I'm never going to manage to cover all of it or explain it well to you as well as you can interpret it or start to interpret it for yourself. But in general terms, if you want to be in control rather than being controlled, gaining a level of mastery apart from the norm, apart from what most people would have, then this is the principle that you're really going to want to start working with immediately and actively in your daily life. And that's probably why you see it referred to so much in all different types of spiritual explanations and practices, right? You see the law of mentalism creep up everywhere, kind of filters down into everything. And that makes sense. If the all is mind, then the way in which you interpret information is going to be directly correlative to who and what you are and who and what your life is, or who and what your reality is, right? So of course you're going to see that reflected throughout all different kinds of spirituality systems. Seriously though, this principle, this law, this is the one. I mean, obviously all 7 of the great universal laws are going to be useful and you need to understand them. But this one, being only by some degree separated from absolutely everything as a mental creation of the all, manifested into form, right? You're manifested into a human form. You're by a degree separated from absolutely everything, as everything is, right? Everything functions this way and is ever present. And that all consciousness, right? That all mind, it's functioning throughout any perceivable temporality system as well. I mean, it's important. Right? It's massively, profoundly powerful. There is a lot of power caught up in this law, in your ability to recognize and apply this principle of mentalism to yourself, your reality, anything you might want, to your own thoughts. So go and read it. Read it in its original form. Go read the Kybalion, read the principle of mentalism, and really start to ascertain for yourself what it means, what its implications are, and how you can begin to apply it, maybe in some of the ways I've hinted at a little bit. Until next time.